Hello, I'm Colin Green. You are listening to episode 50 of Spike Pit. Got a little bit of a treat for you this time. We've got a returning voice to anchor in the form of a few call-ins. So, without any further ado, let's hear what he's got to say.
Hey Colin, it's Matt. Yeah, I'm back on Anchor. I'm probably not going to podcast, but I thought I'd give you a quick buzz. Listening to your discussion about maze rats and Knave, I've had some experience with Dungeon World. Honestly, I hated it. I have done Apocalypse World and Monster Hearts as well in another game that I can't remember that I absolutely hated that was based on it. Monster Hearts I really liked. And the thing I wanted to say is, I love the concept that they formalized with rules in that system. Where you succeed but, or you fail but, or you really suck. But the thing that I think is really interesting is I don't think we really need to formalize that, So, my minute's almost up, so I'm going to send you another message. Like I said, I don't think you need to formalize it. In my game, I'm currently running BX Essentials, and honestly, it's because that's what I'm comfortable with. And I do a lot of ability checks. So you're trying to balance, walk across a 6-inch plank over a big pit. That's a dexterity check for me. You roll D20, get your ability or less. And me as a GM, if the player has a 12 dexterity and they roll a 12, that's a success, right? But what I'll do internally is I'll take that and say, it's a success, but as you came across, the board broke, or it slipped and you dropped one thing, or maybe you got a 13 and I let you succeed, but you dropped your weapon or something like that. So, part 3, I talk a lot. So, I don't necessarily think that you have to do these formalized systems, and the concept or theory behind it can easily be slipped into an existing game, so long as, you roll and you succeed on your ability check, and then me being a jackass DM says, oh, you dropped your weapon. I'm sure players are cry and whine, but, you get a session or two of that, and then they shut up and understand that's just kind of how you're going to roll. Live with it or don't join the game. But, I think like I said, I think you can apply the theory behind those rules into an existing game that you're already running and liking. And just for another example, I really like usage dies. So I just added magic items with usage die in my BX game, and that's straightly stolen from Black Hack. Later, dude.
That's me, Budski, my old OSR Anchorites Budski, Matt Random. Really good to hear from you, Matt. Thanks for taking the time and effort to call in. Chatting with Matt on MeWe, and he had to reinstall the app on his phone and one thing and another just to leave those messages. So really appreciate the effort you're taking there. And you raised some great points. It's easy when you've been running games and DMing for quite a while to sort of forget some of the little stunts and tricks that you actually pull in the course of a session. And you're talking about them ability rolls and pass-fail mechanics and the Dungeon World or PBTA type of idea of success at cost and failing forward and stuff like that. And yeah, when you've DM'd for a little while, I think you're right. A lot of them things are little nuances that you interpret from the standard D20 check without even perhaps realising that you're doing it. It's just all part of crafting the game experience. And it's not rules as written, but I imagine there's quite a lot of DMs that do a similar thing. I definitely do, but I wouldn't have necessarily seen it in the way that Matt is describing there. So that's really interesting, and it does mean that I don't have to worry too much about this. I was talking to Ray Otis about some design considerations for using maze rats with raised plunder grounds, and there's what is the 7 to 9 result in Dungeon World. You can't really you can't just lift straight out Dungeon World and plonk into maze rats, because the rules for maze rats mean that when you've got like proficiency in something, or you're doing something that you've prepared for, or you're getting assistance with, you get an extra dice, an extra d6, and that throws out or does it throw it out? Now it's got me thinking. I'm not entirely sure it does. I'm going to have to go back and think about that, because I can't remember whether when you get the extra die, you add it to the result, or you just pick the better 2, in which case you could still do a 7 to 9 thing. But anyway, either way, if I went with what Matt was saying, I could just disregard the formal mechanism and go with the gut feeling and reading the tea leaves, as it were, on the numbers. Yeah. Now, the other thing Matt mentioned, talking about lifting rules out of one system and into another, we hear about the usage die again, and that has got to be one of the more popular rules that has popped up of late. I mean, I forget when the Black Hat come out. It's a few years ago now, but it's still relatively recent to my mind. You know, when you've been gaming since 80, 81, the Black Hat seems pretty modern to me. And yeah, you can lift that usage die out, and it works really well with magic items. And you haven't got to sort of so much worry about charges and stuff like that, or getting that overpowered campaign where you get a build up of magic items that don't go away. Also relevant to that is the wear that you get in Knave, where items can become damaged when used in combat and criticals happen. I forget what Knave says about magic items on that. Normally, in the tradition of Dungeons and Dragons, magic items are a lot more durable. So probably the Knave rule with criticals might be waived for magical items. I'll have to check that. I've only just thought of it. And I saw someone else earlier today talking about the usage die. So it's a very popular one, along with the likes of advantage and disadvantage, which came in with 5e. I know quite a lot of people writing games and designers and players have been very happy with that mechanism. Although it does have its critics. Some people don't like the whole idea of disadvantage, where you've kind of rolled a good roll and then it's gone because you've had to take the low one. I think Hank Infernal, who designed the ICRPG, he doesn't like. In fact, he pretty much hates advantage and disadvantage. If I'm right with my memory there. On the subject of maze rats and Knave, following up something that Larry Hout said about comparing and contrasting when I'm doing the reviews, there was something I picked up about the reaction table. In Knave, you get the classic sort of 5 variables of reaction, where I think it's in the middle there's a kind of a neutral, undecided kind of response, whereas in Maze Rats you've only got 4 responses, and basically there's either hostile or friendly, but in various in 2 degrees either way. There's no kind of middle ground of undecidedness. So when you roll a reaction roll for an encounter or for whatever reason, it always falls one way or the other. And I like that. But in the majority of OSR material, and going back to BX, that's about as far as my knowledge goes. I don't know about OD&D and stuff, but the reaction table commonly has the 5. I suppose I could look at it, but I haven't got the rules to hand. But I did reach out to Ben Milton, the designer, in the comments section on Questing Beast about reaction tables. I didn't hear back. I've also tried contacting him on MeWe, but as yet haven't heard from him. I did go into the chat, and I know that chat is not popular with some people, so maybe you just don't pick up on his chat messages. But I would like to know what his thinking was for choosing the 5-step reactions in Knave, and then like the 4-step reactions in Maze Rats. And obviously 2 different systems by the same designer, and not something he commented in his designer's notes, probably because he doesn't think it's super important. But it just struck me, and little things like that I like to know. So I don't know if anybody else has got any theories why he might have gone one way or the other, or perhaps what people think of that. I like the sound of the 4, so I'm probably going to if I'm running Knave, I'll probably use Maze Rat's reaction table, and I'm thinking I might use, because I want to try and run some BX, so I might use the 4-step version in my BX game as well. Right, I've decided, just thinking about that last little segment, that I'm not happy with leaving it without the facts and figures. So I've gone to my rule books, and from Knave we have a reaction table. When the PCs encounter an NPC whose reaction to the party is not obvious, the referee may roll 2d6 and consult the following table. On a 2, hostile. On a 3 to 5, unfriendly. On a 6 to 8, unsure. On a 9 to 11, talkative. And on a 12, helpful. Contrast that with Maze Rats, and we have NPC reactions. If PCs come across a monster or NPC whose disposition is unknown, roll 1 dice on the table below. We have 1 hostile, 2 to 3 wary, 4 to 5 friendly, and 6 helpful. So if you look at those figures in Knave, the main disposition that you're going to encounter is unsure, which is probably, it kind of models how 2 unknown parties might approach each other fairly well. 6 to 8 is a lot of the results, and a lot of the time, two lots of protagonists or folks that are unsure of each other, they're unsure. So I can get that, but when you're running a game, how helpful is that? Okay, it leaves the door open a little bit for the party or persons involved to maybe modify the situation, but equally on the Maze Rats one, the 2 to 3 result is wary, the 4 to 5 is friendly. Both of them, they could still be classed as slightly unsure, but you just got that one's more negative, one's more positive, and it's 1 dice. Yeah, I'm still thinking I'm thinking I'm going with Maze Rats on that. But yeah, that's the facts and figures. I just wanted to get that out there. Just looking a little bit deeper there, it is worth noting that on the Maze Rats one, they do codify the definitions of hostile, wary, friendly, and helpful a little bit. If you're trying to work this out, I thought this was in what amounts to 4 or 5 lines, quite helpful information. So, hostile is defined as NPCs will attempt to hinder, harass, or attack the PCs. Wary is NPCs are unhelpful unless given significant motivation. Friendly, NPCs will help as long as it doesn't inconvenience them. And helpful, NPCs will help even when it's inconvenient. And I thought that was pretty good guidance, so I'm tacking that onto what I've got to say.
Hi Colin, John here from Red Dice Diaries. Just finished listening to episode 49 of your podcast, talking about the Midderlands, the great city of London. Thanks very much for the shout out about the adventure I'm working on with Glyn Seal from Monkey Blood Design. Really enjoying writing that at the minute. In fact, I'm busy beavering away at the keyboard as we speak, just taking a break to drop you this message. I'm really looking forward to seeing the great London book myself, and I'm hoping that we can really put out a great adventure. Thanks very much for the shout out again, dude. Enjoyed the podcast episode. Look forward to listening to many more. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.
Always good to hear from you, John. That's John of Red Dice Diaries calling in with some most positive feedback and encouragement. He's taken time out of his adventure writing, as he explained, and we look forward to the fruits of his labours. Talking of adventures in the Midderlands settings, Matt called in again on that very subject.
Hey Glenn, it's Matt again. A great preview. Loved it. Keep up the good work. I too am a fan. I've been I picked up all the stuff, and I was in the second Kickstarter. You know, I love Midderlands. I don't know what to do with it. And I think I've told Glenn this too. It's a great setting. I love it. It's very evocative, very creative and imaginative, but I just don't know what to do with it. You know, I don't know what adventures fit in it. So I was just curious if you have any ideas on, you know, I think you could probably do like a Ravenloft thing in there if you wanted. But it'd probably be a lot of work. I'm not sure. Anyway, you got any ideas on adventures that you could throw into Midderlands and run fairly easy? Laters.
So that's interesting, Matt. I hadn't realised that Matt was a Midderlands fan. I don't recall talking to him much about it, although we may have touched on the subject in relation to Glyn's maps and one thing and another, but it's a bit of a while since I heard the Matt Random podcast. Unfortunately, he's not doing them now and has moved on to other things. So in answer to your question, Matt, my first thoughts were to look at the Dolmenwood stuff from Gavin Norman, because I got the two, and it struck me that there's almost there's a very kind of compatible UK-ish vibe about them, and obviously now it turns out that Emeraudia, I think that's the sort of Irish equivalent in the Midland setting, is where it's kind of been agreed between the creators that that's where Dolmenwood is kind of like officially set. But obviously that's entirely up to the individual. The other stuff I thought about was Jason Schultes' stuff has got that. I don't want to use the word gonzo. It's sort of more a little bit outlandish, and there's an element of the Wow. Jason Hobbs. Wow, you will not be impressed with this word, but whimsical nature in some of these. Jason hates whimsy, I believe. I think I'm right in saying that. I'll get abusive call-ins now. So that'd be three sort of whimsical type things. In fact, so I don't know if what Jason's take on Operation Unfathomable is. I know his Budskis with Jason Schultes, and I think it's really cool. And I can almost imagine an Operation Unfathomable beneath the Midderlands. And old man Grognard Glenn was talking about things he would run in Midderlands, but I can't remember what he said now. So you might want to listen to some episodes of old man Grognard on Radio Grognard, Matt, for further suggestions. The other one is the UK TSR or TSR UK modules. I think they've got that. Once again, it's, I don't know, I think it's kind of peculiar to folks from the UK that I don't know, maybe they write in a certain style. It does seem to be a thing, this sort of bit of whimsical, a little bit quirky weirdness. Maybe it's something in the water. Maybe it's the gloomium. If anybody else has got any thoughts or suggestions for Matt, you can you find him on MeWe, or you can call in here and I'll stick him into the next episode. I would be interested what other people are doing with their Midderlands, as I'm sure Glyn would also be interested. So, yeah, perhaps call in on that one. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, it's a little bit of a shout out again in the direction of Hex Talk, really. They've got 6 episodes out there. A couple of weeks ago, I was back listening to them, and I've had this little project that I've wanted to get on the go, and kind of do an old style creation of a hex crawl. And so to prepare for this, what I've done is I've gathered my resources together in the form of Richard LeBlanc's D30 Sandbox Companion. I've got the original, well, it's a copy of the original Cook Expert. And what else have I got? Yeah, just like I've printed off some, Richard LeBlanc's Hex Crawl worksheets, which are pretty smart. A notebook and a few dice and whatnot. So what I've been doing is I thought I'm just gonna go back and look in the Cook Expert and see what they got to say, because when you listen to Hex Talk, they were talking. They refer to BX for its advice on designing a dungeon, and he basically, I forget which of the guys on Hex Talk it was now. It wasn't Jason. It might have been Eric, but I'm not entirely sure if it's Eric. It's just saying, if you think of the wilderness adventure just as a dungeon where each of the hexes is a room, and so I thought, yeah, that seems like sensible advice. And when you look in the expert rules, it is set out like that. They talk about designing a wilderness. It does actually talk about on page X53. It does talk about designing a dungeon. So the steps are, choose a scenario, decide on a setting, decide on special monsters to be used, draw the map of the dungeon, then stock the dungeon. And then you flick the page over to X54, and it's designing a wilderness. I mean, and both of these, this is just, well, the bit I was talking about took up about half a page, and then it goes into unguarded treasure and creating NPC parties. That's just one page. Then when you flick the page, the design in a wilderness, that is just one page as well. And you know, there's a lot of kind of gold in there to be mined, really. And so the steps to, it says here, for designing a wilderness are as follows. So we've got decide on a setting, draw a map of the area, place the dungeon and the base town, locate areas under human control, place areas under non-human control, outline the base town, fill in important details and points of interest, and create special encounter tables and general layers. You know, so when you look at them, you know, there's not really that much difference between the two. The one thing I would say is placing areas under human control and non-human control as two separate steps. I would sort of probably, I mean, yeah, there could be demi-humans like elves and dwarves and that, but I probably would have an area that was a bit smaller when I was setting it up, and I probably wouldn't have too many different areas of control in a typical wilderness if I was designing it, because I'd be doing a 1 hex is 6 miles type of scale, and I'd do, well, this is where I'll tell you. So I'll flip over to Richard LeBlanc's D30 Sandbox Companion, and his hex crawl worksheet he advocates using basically 3 scales. So you've got a 1 hex to 36 miles, which he calls like an atlas scale. Then he's got a sub hex scale, which is 1 hex is 6 miles, and then he's got a sort of I forget what he calls it, but it's like a detailed scale where each hex is a mile. So on his hexagonal worksheet, he has got like a large hex that contains, it's basically 6 hexes by 6 hexes. So opposite sides of the hex are 36 miles apart. So they're 36 miles across hexes is the big hex. And then you're drawing on this is a sub-hex size. You're drawing on each symbols in each of these little hexes to represent the prevailing terrain. So I thought, what do I want to do? I want to take my 5e setting, which is set around Fandling, and I want to create one of these kind of 36 mile sized big atlas hexes, and I'm going to kind of have that as my starting sandbox. So on there I've got Phandalin, I've got the Lost Mines of Phandelver, I've got just about got in one corner the original encounter from the starter box set for D&D. It's Cragmore Caves or something like that. There's a goblin ambush, and then they've got a hideout. Cragmore Hideout, I think it's called. And then at the top of the hex, just on the outskirts of Neverwinter Wood, I've got Cragmore Castle, and I've been playing for 2 years, and we have barely left that area because we keep getting caught up in Cragmore. Gone a little bit to the northeast. I haven't yet determined. I think they've probably strayed into an adjoining hex at some point. But I thought, as this is an area I'm familiar with, and I want to compare and contrast how I've been doing my campaigns up to this point, and how I want to kind of look back and do a bit of this hex crawling and sandbox play, and perhaps the sort of like players dropping in and dropping out kind of idea, which is a little bit more flexible for online play, or if you've got a group where you're struggling to get your dates all lined up and get all the people to turn up when they say they're going to turn up, etc. So what I've got so far is that I've got this grid of hexes, and in the Sandbox Companion, you've got multiple charts. One is basically to create unusual features or features, geographical features, and then there's another one that another set of charts that deal with whether hexes are inhabited or not. And basically, I've forgotten how much. Well, I hadn't forgotten, but there is quite a good deal of fun in just rolling this D30. I've written down all the hex. I've like numbered all the hexes, and I'm just going along randomly rolling on these charts to find out what's what. And I'll give you an example. So I've turned up a crater lake with a temple. I've got a small town that's popped up, which I'm probably going to relocate and use that as Phandalin. Then in one of the woodland hexes, I've been able to place a lake. I've got a riparian zone, which is an interface between land and river. I need to look into that a little bit more because that was a new one on me. Then I've got some more, another crater and a lake. In fact, I've rolled that up quite a lot. I've got quite a few craters and lakes and things, just purely by chance. So that's already sort of started to get a little picture going in my mind. I've got some a ruined village with nuisance reptiles, because that's something else you do. When you roll up your settlements, there's random tables for the inhabitants, and the other table you've got is for ruins. You get tables to say what degree of ruination and the nature of the ruination and stuff like that, and it goes on and on and on. And yeah, it gets quite granular, but it probably sounds a little bit like, for some people, a bit spreadsheety or a bit like perhaps a job that they do. But as a gardener, I'm outside, I'm doing physical work, and you know, I don't mind sitting down with a pad and a D30 and just looking for a few charts and rolling these random results. And you know, for me, this preparation stage of D&D, I don't want to do it all the time, but when I'm in the mood for it, when I've got something I'm aiming for, I find it really quite fulfilling to go through these things, because it kind of opens up these little doors in your mind, and you go off down these little. You kind of you're almost there, if you know what I mean. You're kind of like, it's as though you're exploring the place yourself for the first time. It's like the reverse of the Never-Ending Story. I don't know. I would hope that everybody who's listening has seen that film, where the kids. The story is kids are losing their imagination. They're stopping reading. They're going doing other stuff, and this imaginary world, as the kids stop believing and stop imagining, this nothingness kind of comes and is destroying the fantasy land. And for me, this process of creating this hex core and this sandbox, it's like the opposite. It's like this nothingness is the nothingness is like the fog in my mind, and it's receding as I'm rolling these dice and making some notes. The vagueness that was perhaps some of the region around Phandalin for me, it's receding, and I'm starting to fill in the gaps a little bit, but not to a point where I can't add more or get more granular, and you know, I can still change it and everything else, but just the act of rolling on these tables and actually giving sort of fairly definite locations to things, I found really rewarding and basically fun. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because that's what I've been up to. Once again, I've waffled on for an eon, and I'm going to call it a day there. I'll come back to this probably. But yeah, shout out. My inspiration is with Hex Talk and the guys. You got 6 episodes of pure gold there. I just encourage everybody. Once again, I encourage all my listeners, go and check that out. Do yourselves a favour. And thanks for listening. Thanks for the call-ins. Really good to hear from you, Matt and John. And I'll catch you later, guys. Take it easy.